My script is pretty much word for word, but I write it the way I would say it.
Mm.
Um, Though it's funny, I used to be very opposed to writing any videos. Like when I was like a teenager, I would just like turn on the camera and just rant. And now I feel like I can't ever like film a main channel video without writing it out
Yeah.
because I would record for like 2 hours and it would just not make sense.
Yeah. So, Tiffany, you create some incredible videos. They're in depth, they're well researched. So, can you share your process starting from idea generation to uploading onto YouTube? So, let's just start with how you come up with your ideas and then go from there.
Right. Usually, well, I have like a running, it used to be just notes on my phone, like literally any possible thing that pops into my head. I recently tried to get into Notion,
Hmm.
the organizing website, and that's like a whole thing that you have to spend time setting up. But I'm trying to transfer my videos there so that I can do like different main channel ones. And then I have a second channel on my podcast, try to keep those all organized. But it really is just like, any questions that I have or things I come across on YouTube or on social media where I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So I'll jot that down and usually add a couple bullet points. And then sometimes I'll read like an article and I'll go, oh, that reminds me of that topic. And so, like, it usually forms very slowly over time. And then when I go to actually make a video, I look through that list and I'm like, okay, does any of this relate to anything like topical, or is any of this like something that I'm really passionate about right now? Because sometimes a topic can be on my list for like a year
Mm.
before I actually feel like compelled to cover it. But then sometimes I'm like overwhelmed by the number of ideas I have, and I'm like, oh, I want to do that and I want to do that, but like usually my videos take me, the internet analysis ones that have the most research can take me like 7 to 10 days of work. So I have to like really like the idea. Otherwise, in
Mhm.
the middle of it, I'm just going to be like, I give up.
Has it ever happened with a video that you were working on and you didn't finish it?
Yeah. Yeah. I've written a lot of like partial outlines and scripts, and like by that point I get so like, in my head, and I feel like I've heard it a million times because I've already repeated it to myself. And then I'm like, I can't even film this. Like I'm not this video's not flowing right, or like
Yeah.
something's off. So sometimes I just save those scripts for later, and sometimes, they're useful later down the line, or I just end up scrapping them.
So when you decide on an idea, then what's your next step?
So usually one of the things that really gets my, ideas flowing is I'll go to my Instagram and I like to ask my followers on there, like, basically, what do you think about this topic? Like, I recently did a video about the obnoxious closets of the super rich,
Hmm.
and I was like, what do you guys think about these videos, like closet tours and things? And people will either give me like their reaction, or they'll recommend like, oh, check out this person or this, video or this movie. So that always leads me in like a lot of different directions and helps me when I'm writing my outline go, oh, like I wouldn't have even thought of that. Like I can include that point, or it reinforces like something I've already thought of. And I go, okay, a lot of people are interested in that. I'll make
Hmm.
sure to focus on that. So that really helps me because otherwise it's kind of like starting to write like a regular essay.
Hmm.
I just kind of like spit up everything that I can think of and I try to organize it into an outline, but it usually takes a long time to make sense of things and figure out which order to talk about things.
Hmm.
Because, like, I just finished my bachelor's degree. So, like, in an academic essay, it makes sense to structure things a certain way based on, your argument.
Hmm.
But I find on a YouTube video, like, I have to be careful about pacing because sometimes I want to leave like my big conclusion for the end, but not everyone's going to watch the whole 25-minute video. So I
Hmm.
have to like put enough interesting things in the beginning to keep them watching, and then in the middle. And so it's interesting to try to structure it for YouTube specifically.
That is really interesting. So you have an idea, you poll your audience, see if there's something they're interested in. And then from there, it sounds like you get even additional insights or ideas or maybe resources you can look into. And then you start to structure your video itself. So, how is that process for you? Are you sitting there outlining it? Are you coming up with an actual script? What is that process? Or are you doing research and then, adding that to your outline? What is that process like?
Yeah, so I usually do an outline, and again, that's just like random thoughts, random questions I have, things I want to research later, and then I'll start to build the actual script and I'll move stuff around and see again like what flows, what makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. And then when I start the research process, that's when I get in and I'll start to take screenshots because I like to include like if I'm referencing an article or if I find a video, that's when I'll start to download those clips and save them for later. Sometimes I just have like a fully written script and I'll read through it a few times with a timer before I record to see like how long is this actually? Like,
Mm.
am I going too long? That's where I can see like this point isn't flowing or I'm talking about this section for way too long, so I'll make some changes before I actually film. As much planning as I can do before filming is helpful because even for like a 30-minute video, I end up getting probably like 90 minutes of footage and
Mm-hmm.
like
Wow.
sorting through that is so exhausting. Yeah, again, when I pre-download and cut the other video clips that I want to
Mm-hmm.
use, like other YouTubers or other, B-roll, that really helps me too, because then I know, okay, this clip will go exactly right there. When I first started internet analysis, I did it backwards
Mm.
where
Okay.
I'd go, oh, I'll find those clips that fit later. So I'd film it and then I'd go to find the clips and they wouldn't fit exactly
Match.
because I didn't write it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then I'd spend all this time trying to change it. And yeah, I ended up realizing like planning it all in advance obviously saves a lot of time.
Yeah, I was, in watching your videos, I do notice it's like you have supporting evidence, so you're talking about a point, you're showing photos, you're showing videos. And I was thinking, wow, that must take a long time to sit there and find all that information. So, how much time does it take you to do this research script writing part of your process, like
I
hours
would have to
wise?
check. I've been asked this before, like how long does it take to make a video? And I'm like, I don't know. I actually started using an app called Clockify. I always say
Oh,
Clackify, Clockify.
Clockify. Okay.
And I track like every type of task I'm doing basically from writing to filming to editing, exporting, and all the final touches. So then I can see, because I love like data, I love tracking
Me
stuff for some
too.
reason.
Me too.
So I like going back and seeing my little pie chart and being like, oh, that's where I spend most of my time. That's interesting. And also, I've been considering, eventually being able to work with a co-writer or an
Mm-hmm.
assistant or an editor. And so to know how much time those tasks take me would be helpful when I do that. But the actual writing process, probably like maybe like 6 to 10 hours, depending on the video and depending on if I have to watch a lot of content to
Mm-hmm.
be able to do it. Because sometimes I like review like a Netflix show or like a movie. And obviously that I include my like writing time as my research time, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So 6 to 10 hours. And that is writing the script and pulling all the clips so that when you're editing, you have all that ready to go.
Right. And then even then, editing usually takes me the longest. And I always think like, oh, this should be quick.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like my one rough cut and then I'll go back and add my little, titles and stuff. And then I still add more screenshots. And I try to include a lot of visuals that are, going to keep you
Mm-hmm.
entertained
Mm-hmm.
because I do get some comments of people like, oh, I just listen to these as a podcast. I don't even watch them. And then I think, oh, I'm spending all this time on, visuals and they're not even seeing them. But I think it makes for an entertaining video. And I've also noticed that I put the most focus in like the first 5 minutes of the video
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like
Editing.
graphics and titles, because I know like that's going to hook people in. And I think if you're going to put in the effort for like little sound effects or little things,
Mm-hmm.
like the beginning is the time to do that. People will be like, oh, this is a high energy, interesting video. And then I can get into the like heavier, dense information that I have to unravel.
Do you pay attention to your metrics? Like, are you looking at your audience retention for your videos and kind of making decisions based off of that?
I look at my analytics sometimes, but honestly, like I don't really have like actions that I would do to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can look at retention or, yeah, how much of the video is the average viewer watching. And I feel like if I pay too much attention to that, I'll just get overwhelmed and be like, oh, well, then why am I writing these long videos if half the people aren't going to see it till the end? I think like you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt because obviously a lot of YouTube viewers are kind of jumping all over the place. And even me as a viewer, I do watch a lot of long form content, but sometimes I do just watch the first couple minutes and then I switch videos because I always have, 30 more videos on my watch list. So I just try to not take it personally. But it is interesting, I guess, sometimes where you can notice like, oh, there's a drop off point here. Like for some reason, everyone left the video there. Or I think you can even tell if people have like rewinded.
Yeah, you can.
Rewound certain points.
Yeah.
But no, I don't really look at that. And even in terms of like views, like the YouTube Creator Studio that tells you your little rankings every time, that is like the bane of my existence because like, obviously, if you're getting a lower ranked video, it's very disappointing. Yeah. And if you're getting a high ranking, it's like, okay, finally, I've done something right. Yeah. YouTube's like, more of your viewers are tuning in than usual. I'm like, thank you. So, but then I'm like, I know next week it's not going to be as good. And then I'm going to feel bad again. So I try not to pay too much attention.
Yeah. Okay. So how long does it take you to edit your videos? So you mentioned 8 to 10 hours to putting the script together and the research and then the editing.
I would probably say another like 10 hours for editing. And then it's funny because once I finish editing, like I'm supposed to be posting a video today, but I have to finish the last round of like final touch edits. And I always think like, oh, that'll take me like an hour. And it takes me like 3 times as long. And then I go, oh, just final touches. Like I do timestamps and I do my thumbnail and, little details. And those always take me so much longer than I think. So like even just the final touches on the day of an upload can take me like 6 hours sometimes. Yeah. So yeah, I would say the average for my internet analysis videos, like total from start to finish, can be between like 20 to 25, even like 30 hours. So like, that's interesting. And again, it's cool to see those numbers. And when I say like, oh, it takes me like 7 to 10 days to do a video, it's not like I'm working like 8-hour days. And like the way that I structure it, because I like to give myself a lot of creative freedom, like I couldn't just sit down and be like, write the video. Like you have 3 hours, write it. I like to give myself that time to like have those like shower thoughts or like naturally absorb something or, I like it to be a little more organic, even though I know if I forced myself to write and do the process, I would maybe post more often. Yeah. But I don't know if my videos would be as good or as satisfying for me. So I let it happen slowly. And I try to not overwhelm myself because with editing too, like if I'm sitting and editing for more than like 6 hours in a day, my eyes are going to start hurting. Like I just can't go beyond that. Yeah.
So do you stick with a schedule for uploading?
No, I never have, which is pretty wild because I've been on YouTube for so long. Yeah. I think the only time I've ever had a schedule is I was in a couple collab channels, like 2010-ish. So like that was old school stuff and I was always Tuesday. But no, I've never been good with an upload day. And when I try to, I feel like it just, again, is like another deadline that just stresses me out and doesn't help me. But I found that I think in recent times, people, or at least creators, are less likely to have an upload day. That used to be a thing where people are like, you have to be consistent. You have to have your day. And like, I think viewers like that dependability, but I think creators realize like, I can post whenever I can get it done. And that can still be an effective way to put your content out there. It's not like people are going to be like, oh, it's Wednesday, not Tuesday. I'm not watching.
Yeah, it's better. I'm a big believer in quality on YouTube versus rushing things or the quantity. So how often do you try and get a video up on your channel? Like what's your goal?
Yeah, lately it's been like if I could do 3 internet analysis videos on my main channel a month, that would be great. I used to wish I could do weekly, but just like over time, the videos get longer, the research is more. And I don't want to rush it because then, the viewers aren't going to be happy with it and I'm not going to be happy with it. So 3 would be ideal. But in all of 2020, I was doing my senior year of my bachelor's degree. And then I got very busy with that. So I was really only posting like once or twice a month on my main channel, like all of 2020, which was really frustrating to me because my biggest period of growth was late 2019. So I had all this momentum and all these new subscribers, and then suddenly I was like, hey, I'm busy with college. See you in a year.
Yeah.
So that was really hard. But I knew like for my energy and my mental health, I needed to like focus on school. But yeah, now that I've graduated, I just finished in December. I've still been trying to like establish a regular work schedule for me because I've been so used to being in college that like I'm on that very flexible
Yeah.
schedule, but I'm trying to give myself a little bit more of a strict routine, but I'm also, I'm self-employed and I'm home by myself every day,
Yeah.
and it's very easy to not be strict with myself.
Got it. And so back to your schedule, I mean, your script. So what does that script look like? Is it word for word, verbatim, or is it just an outline? And then when you're recording your video, how does that process work with your script?
My script is pretty much word for word, but I write it the way I would say it.
Mm.
Though it's funny, I used to be very opposed to writing any videos. Like when I was like a teenager, I would just like turn on the camera and just rant. And now I feel like I can't ever like film a main channel video without writing it out
Yeah.
because I would record for like 2 hours and it would just not make sense.
Yeah.
So for the sake of making my point, I have to like write it out and make sure it, is as concise as possible. But when I go to film, that is the hard part, is like, how do I make this sound natural? Because I don't want it to sound scripted. It does help that I script it in my voice, but I think also like I'm just comfortable on camera because I've been doing this for way too long, and that helps. But I do have to like essentially glance at my script, which is usually on my like laptop next to me. I try to memorize the next like 2 or 3 sentences, and then I try to say them.
Oh.
And so it takes me a really long time to film because I just keep like stumbling on every line. And then, that's why editing takes so long too, is like I said this like 3 times. I finally had a good take. Okay, next one.
Yeah.
But it is kind of funny, like trying to perform those like sometimes I do throw in like unscripted jokes or little tangents if I think of them in the moment, but a lot of it is like scripted things that I want to make. So then I have to make it sound natural again, which is weird.
Yeah, well, what you're doing is working because your videos are great. I mean, they're very engaging and entertaining, and you could tell that there's so much thought and energy and time put into them. And that was one of the things I was wondering. I was like, oh, she has to script this out. So I was wondering if you use a teleprompter, but it sounds like what you do is you literally will just take by take, like just line by line.
I would love to try a teleprompter, but like I feel like I'd get self-conscious about like, are my eyes moving too much? Or like that's a skill on its own, is reading a teleprompter.
Oh, yeah, it is. So do you have a specific video that was the hardest to put together for you?
Ooh, that's a great question. I feel like every video has its challenges, which is like cliche to say, but I don't know. I would say like anything that was the most challenging was probably not made in the end. Like it probably fell apart during the writing process. I feel like I have this feeling of like highs and lows for every video where I get really excited about the idea and then I start writing and I'm excited and then I get bogged down by like how much I have to research and think about, and then sometimes in the middle of writing I'm like, none of this makes sense. Like, am I making any points? So that's when like the self-doubt comes in, and then I'm like, well, now I have to film and like I don't even know if like this is a good video, so then it makes it a little bit difficult. But then usually once I film, I'm like, okay, that's a relief. I get through the editing process. I see that even though in my head while I was filming I thought it was bad or stupid or whatever, I'm watching it and like I'll like laugh at my own points and like enjoy the process of editing my video. And then I get to the end of that and I'm like, okay, this is an okay video. Like for my standards, like it works. But yeah, I have that challenge all the time, which is annoying because I wish I could get over it. But I think that's just how my creative process works.
Yeah. Oh, I have one last question. Okay. And so going back to your video topics, do you do any research as far as SEO? I know that's a big thing on YouTube, right? It's like, getting things that are heavily searched or, all the SEO. Do you take that in consideration when you're finalizing an idea?
No, I do search to see if anything has been said about it, because I like to cover things that I feel like, or I've noticed maybe on other platforms people talking about, but then I'm like, nobody's made a video on this though, so I want to be that person to do it. So I'll check and see if anyone has done it, because sometimes the most frustrating thing is when you make a video, it's your own idea, and then you get comments, oh, you copied so-and-so, they just posted a video about this.
Yeah.
I love when it's like they posted it like the same day or the day before. I'm like, you think I made this video on the last day? Okay. But then I'm also like, we all have, it makes sense that we'd have similar ideas because, we're all operating in the same space and nothing is 100% original. But I'm like, also, if I ever was inspired by someone, I would shout them out.
Yeah.
I would say, hey, I watched this video. I love to do that. But anyway, so I'll search for if a video exists. And if it does, I'm always conflicted about whether I watch it or not, because I want to watch it to see if my video or my point is going to be different. But then I don't want to subconsciously absorb their information.
Yeah.
So that's a conflict I have.
Yeah.
But no, I don't do SEO. I don't really try to do, like, if something's trending, like where everyone's talking about it or whatever, I tend to feel like that's a little too oversaturated for me. But I like to pick something that's like, I mean, ideally it would be right before it blows up so that like I can be that first video. Like that's where I had fun making my, my video on flared leggings and yoga pants, because like I heard about it on Twitter and like people were talking about it a little on TikTok, but I was like, oh, I don't think there's like a video about this yet. And it seems like a very niche thing that you'd say, oh, nobody cares about that on YouTube. But I had a fun time putting it together. And then, I still don't know if it's like the most searchable thing, but like it was a fun video for me. So that's what I aim for.
And how did it do as far as the performance of the video?
I think it did pretty well. Let me check.
I mean, your videos get hundreds of thousands of views, which is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's funny. I used to have, when I was like at my peak, when my channel was growing really fast, I knew I was doing well when like I would get texts from my brother or my mom. They'd be like, oh my God, your video got 200,000 views in a day. And I'm like, yeah, like it's doing well.
Just another Tuesday.
And, exactly. I got so used to that, really high standard of, views. And then suddenly things slow down as they do. And I go, oh, and then my mom's not texting me like about how many views I got anymore. Let's see. The yoga pants video it's at 370,000, which is pretty good. Because around the time where I was finishing up school, my uploads were again very spaced out. So I was aiming for like if it could just pass 100,000, like that's good. But yeah, so that was a good video, and I'm happy with it.
Awesome. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much for sharing this in-depth look at the behind the scenes of how you put together your amazing content.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.